Thanks for tuning in and welcome back to the shop. What do you say we get after changing a fuel filter on this 2013 Mitsubishi Fuso FG? Fuel filter element ML239124 should contain in the box one filter and one O-ring. And of course, there are a couple of other things that you're going to want to have on hand to do this job. Number one, we are going to be draining the fuel filter bowl, so you want something to put the diesel in. Probably want a funnel to go along with it. I'm not going to be putting the diesel back into the truck, but I will reuse it in my little diesel heater. You're probably going to make a bit of a mess. Good idea to have some paper towels. You're going to need to open and close the filter drain. Make sure you got a good set of calibrated pliers so you can get the proper torque. We're going to want a 1/2-inch drive ratchet. And to go along with that, you are going to need a special tool. This is what you use to remove the filter housing on these trucks. And thanks to Tyler at ROAD Overland, I now have one of these. If you need one of these, check out the links in the description of the video to see where you can get yours. Not sponsored, not paid to do that, just a place for you to get it. Good information. I'm also going to recommend that you have a white wax marker. I will show you why in a minute. And of course, good to have a set of gloves and some safety glasses so you don't splash diesel in your eye. Unless you're one of those guys on that survey that I just posted about the videos and you responded with, I would rather splash diesel in my eyes than watch another one of your videos, you don't need the safety glasses. I'm kidding, of course. Everybody wants safety glasses. Safety first. One more thing, a little bit of oil. Put on the O-ring before we put it back together. Oh, and you may need a flat screwdriver or some other sort of pushy pokey tool, depending on the orientation of your fuel tube. You see, the easiest way to get the fuel to drain out of the filter is to allow air in at the top while the fuel is coming out at the bottom. So step 1 in the manual says remove the fuel tube. Now, I can't confirm 100%, but these are the only things that I can see as fuel tubes, so we need to remove one of these. I'm going to remove the supply line as opposed to the return line, but I don't think it really matters. As long as you've removed one of these, air can get in at the top so the fuel can come out at the bottom. And one would think that this should be a pretty straightforward thing, but in order to remove these lines, you need to push in on these white tabs, which of course are inside the bracket, hence the pokey tool. By coming in here and pushing in on the white tab with this, I can at the same time pull backwards on the fitting and hopefully get it to come off. I got diesel in my eye. I'm kidding. I'm wearing safety glasses. Make sure you don't lose this little white clip. This is what holds the fuel line back in place. But now we should be able to get fuel to drain out the bottom. With the line separated at the top, get your catch can underneath, and you should get fuel coming out of the drain without completely removing the drain plug once the O-ring clears the passage. Once the fuel is finished draining out, we can take the body off the filter. Just kind of a waiting game now. With all the fuel drained out, we want to tighten this back up again. First by hand, and then very carefully and very accurately with our certified calibrated pliers to 1.1 foot-pounds, which is slightly over 12 inch-pounds, 1.5 Newton-meters, or 0.0, maybe 0.5 kgfms. Now, before we go any further, I am going to make one recommendation that is not in the manual, and that is with your white marker. I want to put a mark on the outside where I can actually see it. And that's because the reference mark that Mitsubishi proposes that we use ends up being on the back side of the filter where you can't really see it. This is the little tab that Mitsubishi refers to, and this is what keeps the two halves locked together in the correct orientation. This should mean that your filter housing is tight enough and not too tight. That said, it is very difficult to see this because the frame is right here. That said, while we're underneath the truck, we do need to disconnect the wiring. We need to pull up on this little yellow tab and then pull back on the gray clip And that's going to cause the two halves of this plug to start separating. Not the easiest thing in the world, but there's the harness separated. Now Mitsubishi suggests that you rotate this and pull it out. I don't like flexing this harness. It's a little bit hard to see there, but let's pull down a little bit. This harness is quite short, and if you try and turn this too much, you're actually putting quite a bit of stress on the plug at the bottom. To remove this, you do not need to rotate the plug, but there is a little tab in the bottom that holds this plug onto the part that'll rotate in here. The easiest way that I've found is really just pull out on the bottom and then slide up. And you can see this little tab here is what catches on the bottom. So it does have clearance to come straight off. You can see there's a little click there. If you try and push it up, it won't work, but if you pull the bottom out and then slide it up, it comes right off. Oh, hey, it's me again. I don't know if you can tell, but a little bit of time has passed since I started filming this video. I probably look a little bit more tanned, and the hair's a little bit different. I wanted to remind you that this channel and this video is brought to you by me, and I'm hoping a little bit by you. What I mean by that is I'm here to help you learn how to do things, see how to do things that you haven't done, and I'm hoping that you're able to help me a little bit in your daily life. All it takes is for you to visit some of the links that I posted in the video descriptions that go to Amazon. If you're a regular Amazon shopper, follow one of my links before you start doing your shopping, buy whatever it is that you normally buy, and check out within 24 hours of visiting through my link, and it helps me out just a tiny little bit. Every time somebody does that, a little bit comes my way, and it helps me help you with stuff like this. Let's get back to the fuel filter change. You may be surprised at how hard this filter housing actually is to remove. The steel mount may flex and twist, and you'll think something is going to break. I really did not think mine was going to come apart, but it does. I'm sure the more dirt and grime your truck has been exposed to, the worse it will be, but don't worry, that special service tool and your ratchet will get the job done. Once you've freed up the housing with the special service wrench, you may find that an oil filter wrench can spin it off the rest of the way, but I wouldn't recommend this to get things started. It is way too tight. Once the filter housing gets loose enough, you should be able to spin it the rest of the way by hand. Make sure you have a catch pan underneath because you will likely get a small amount of remaining diesel. Dump anything that's left into the catch pan. And now you can remove the old filter by pulling up. Put the filter into your catch pan. And now you're ready to install the new filter. Be careful, inside here is the fuel temperature sensor. If this gets damaged, you will have issues with your truck not regenning properly, and you probably get put into limp mode that's difficult to get out of. So be careful not to damage that. And if you do have a limp mode code, get the codes read. Find out if it's your temperature sensor for your fuel. It's pretty easy to change, very similar to changing the filter. You do not have to remove the bowl to change the temperature sensor. It just comes out the bottom. With the filter removed, take a look inside the bowl to make sure there's no debris in there. If there is, give it a good clean out before we put things back together. The next thing you'll want to do is remove this O-ring and replace it with the one that came with your new filter. Pop the O-ring off. What you want to do before you put the new O-ring on is lube it with a little bit of clean motor oil. I'm just going to dip my fingers in there. Spread it around on the O-ring so it's nice and lubed up. That is going to help it go back together. Pop the O-ring into the groove below the threads on the housing. Pop into place, nice tight fit. Okay, the threads are probably lubed with diesel, but doesn't hurt to have a little bit of oil on them to help things go together. Now we're ready to put the new filter in. Here's the filter. The blue or colored disc goes to the top, the large hole goes to the bottom. There's an O-ring down there on the temperature sensor that helps seal the bottom. We're going to slide this gently on here. A little twist if it needs to. Make sure that it is fully seated in the bottom. It's nice and straight, and it should be sticking up about an inch or 25.4 millimeters, maybe a little more, roughly about your finger. And we are good to reinstall the filter bowl. Obviously this threads in, and you want to make sure that it threads in until this little tab clicks into the notch at the top, and hopefully there's still a little bit of a mark from the marker we put on there that should line up with the white mark that we put on the top half of the filter. Basically, this lip here should be pretty much flush up against the lip above it. Be careful when you're reinstalling this to make sure that this pops easily onto the piece that's up inside here where the fuel comes in. That's going to get your alignment. And as you're pushing it up, you're going to want to start turning it. And it should grab and start threading in. You may find, again, at the early stages here, the right size oil filter wrench will help it go on fairly quickly. And there's your click almost. I can see my white mark coming around right there. The two pieces of plastic have gone back together flush. The O-ring is up inside here. We should be good. Next, you want to remount the fuel temperature sensor plug and make sure the clip is the right way up to do this. Once that clicks into place, push the truck harness back into the plug, and while you're pushing down, pull the gray clip forward so you lock it in. Lastly, push down on the yellow tab to lock everything in place. The fuel tube simply pushes back on. Make sure you hear it click and check that it has locked in place. The only thing left to do at this point should be priming the fuel system, which you do by turning the ignition on as noted here. And after that, clean up your mess. Job well done. I hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget to visit the links in the description. I really appreciate it. Again, scroll down to the description, visit the links. If you're buying something on Amazon within 24 hours, click a link, buy your stuff. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.